Are watches just expensive status symbols that we don't need and we're trying to impress other people, or is there more to it? Let's explore it in this video. And I've had a few comments recently, and some people, if you watch my channel, you watch it for my Spain content. Other people watch it for watches and fragrances and all that kind of stuff. I'm appreciative of everybody, but I get comments from some people saying, aren't Rolex watches just status symbols? What's it all about? And I do get that. And I thought it would be interesting to explore it and almost revisit it for myself as well. And I'm going to do it by showing you this piece and even some notes that I've written. So I'm going to open this shortly. But first and foremost, I just want to give you my personal experience with watches. It's story time, guys. So when I was a kid, and I'm talking as far back as maybe 8 or 10 or 12, when we went on holiday as a family, and we never really had the money to go abroad until later, and then my father took me to America, to Disneyland a couple of times. But we went to the UK, Wales and the Northeast and Norfolk and so on. I always remember having an obsession with watches and having watches as my goal. Like, I really want to buy a watch, Dad, this week when we're on holiday, and buying a watch for next to nothing. £5, £10 or something like that, and loving these watches. And I had this obsession with watches from a very, very early age, and I honestly cannot explain it. Maybe if you're watching it, you were the same. Maybe you found watches later in life, but let me know your comments. Leave a comment and let's keep this conversation going. But when I listened to a very prominent psychologist, Jordan Peterson, some of you may well be familiar with Jordan's work, he shared some fascinating data, which is that boys and men tend to be more preoccupied with things, whereas girls and women tend to be more preoccupied with more people. Perhaps that explains why there's more men that go into things like engineering and more women go into careers like nursing, because there's a fascination with things. And when I look at my own son now, I see him at 7, and he got a remote controlled train for his birthday last week. He has spent hours sort of staring at the underneath, looking at how the wheels make the thing move, and he loves this thing. By the way, apologies, they're doing some gardening over there, so there's a noise in the background, hopefully not too distracting. And hours and hours and hours, he stares and looks at this stuff. And he's got this obsession with things. Whereas my daughter, Maya, is more interested in colouring, drawing pictures. She's got a Barbie she combs the hair of. More about people. Now look, that's only 2 people in this world. But the data suggests that those things tend to manifest. And my father, my granddad, nobody in my family was ever a watch person. I never got brought up on this. Like, maybe my son would see my watches and may be interested in watches, and he likes it. He's got a couple of watches, Spider-Man watch and a this watch. And so park that for a second, this random obsession with watches from a young age. But the key message there is, that's not about status. That's not about impressing people. It's about playing with a toy and being preoccupied with it and enjoying it for what it is. And then my parents asked me what I would like for my 18th birthday. And I wasn't into watches massively through my teens. not obviously anyway, but I said I would really like a watch. So they bought me this, which I will show you in a second, which is my very first ever watch. So I'll give you a bit of an overlay under the camera in a minute, but it's a Seiko Kinetic two-tone, and on the back engraved it says all our love, and mum and dad. And it's a nice little watch. I don't really wear it that much anymore. I had it serviced recently, but I'm very, very honoured to own it. And out of all my watches, all the value, all the Rolex watches, the other brands, I think this one has to be right up there at the very, very top of the tree. Probably to me worth a lot more, even though it's not financially worth a lot, if you know what I mean. So I chose a watch at 18. And then my love of watches sort of, actually I don't remember being obsessed with watches until I started working and earning a bit of money. And the first luxury watch I bought was an Omega Aquaterra, beautiful chronograph, 43mm with a cream dial. I talked about that in a video before, which you should check out. It's called Watch Collecting is for Everyone. And then I went on a bit of a journey of celebrating milestones in life, building a business, my first year at certain income levels. I'd reward myself with a watch. And then I found Rolex. And a client of mine had a Rolex Deep Sea. And when I looked at that watch on him and I saw the success he'd had, the life he had, I felt like I want that watch. I need to be able to strive to that watch. And that was my first Rolex purchase, a Rolex Deep Sea, which was very, very expensive. I remember going to Goldsmiths in Leeds with my wife, having the champagne, and they just made it really, really special, and left with this amazing Rolex Deep Sea. And I loved that watch. But it got me started on the Rolex journey. And I loved the watches for the watches, but having then seen the way the UK went and my business was growing, I think, thinking out loud, I used the watches as motivation to drive forwards, to grow the business. But at the same time, I want to be open and honest. I loved them for what they were. And I don't have any problem with anybody seeking a trophy. In a way, it's like, I want to be a world champion. Why do you want to be a world champion? Because you want to be the best in the world. You want the recognition, sure. And I think there's something out there with, I want to buy that watch and I want to be at that level, and so on and so forth. And I don't think there's anything at all wrong with that until there is. Until it's not serving you in the right way. And I definitely think there are elements of watches in my own experience that maybe I lost sight of the love of the watch for the ownership of that watch. And I think that's very, very easy to do, especially in a society like the UK, which is all about a bigger house, a fancier watch, a nicer car, and so on. But I still loved the watches. So it was always a difficult, when I think back now, collecting Rolexes, collecting other expensive watches, there was always that dance between, do I really want it? Can I have it? And so on, and the thrill of the chase. And I think it's easy to lose sight of who is this for? Is it for you? Is it for me? or is it for other people to see and perceive me? And I'm going to give you my answer to that in a second, actually, because it's an important one, that one. But for sure, I actually don't think it matters. And because when I think back, my family were a family of teachers, educators. We didn't have much money. We didn't have no money. We just didn't have lots of money. But also, there was a real feeling of we never show wealth. We never show people how successful we've been. It's wrong. And that was so strong through my youth. I also come from an area in the UK that's prone to that, Yorkshire, as opposed to, say, London. And there is very much that, don't show anybody how wealthy you are, there's tall poppy syndrome, envy, that kind of thing. And so an extreme example of that is I saw someone in London in the last year or so driving a Ferrari, and I actually read a story in the paper about a velvet-covered Ferrari driving through the streets of London. And you see that in London all the time, Ferraris, all sorts of colours, so much money, just absolutely crazy wealth. But the owner of this Ferrari was Russian and had basically escaped from Russia, having been in this oppressed regime. And when you look at that and you sort of seek to understand the motives behind the person, and I don't know this person, so I can't fully comment, but if you seek to understand, it's very plausible that they're showing that because they've never been able to. They're the first person in their family. They just they've managed to attain wealth, and they're just expressing themselves. I don't have any problem with that. As a coach, I look at that and I think, you're going through something there. You're going through something. But I also look at people that don't necessarily do that and think, you're going through something different. There's something that you're going through, that you have an issue there as well. So this is all about acceptance and letting people just take their own course. And if a trophy, be it a watch, a car, a house, or this, or that, or the other, is really important to you, then you should bloody do it. You really should do it. And definitely I've felt that and been through that phase in my life, in my 20s and 30s, gone through that phase and sort of almost have to sometimes exercise it out, I think. We're getting deep and meaningful in this video, aren't we? I hope you're still with me. And I hope you're getting something from this. Make sure you please do comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So, are watches unnecessary status symbols, or is there something more? When I moved to Spain 2 years ago almost, I left most of my watches in the UK in bank vaults, and I brought some pieces. But what I noticed was that very few people wore luxury watches. So in the UK, you go to the Tube in London, everybody's wearing a Rolex. It's ridiculous. It's almost not special. It's really like a mass thing. Over here, I didn't see that at all. And maybe that coincided with my taste changing, going from bigger watches to smaller watches. I don't know. I think that's kind of irrelevant on this one. But I didn't miss some watches, but the watches that I really pined for, I really missed. And I also really enjoyed wearing the watches that I'd brought with me, as much, if not more, than ever before. Yet, the society wasn't very contagious with watches at all. And it taught me that I love my watches for what they are, not just for what people see with those watches, because nobody gives a crap in Spain, or certainly less so than in the UK. It's not a big deal. So it's sort of taken me full circle, starting as a child with the love and the obsession and the things, collecting watches, and maybe getting a little bit lost in the societal kind of got to have this one, got to have that one, and then coming full circle to I actually do really love these things for some strange reason. And it's not for you, it is for me. And I think I'm in a good place with them now. So much so that I've sold a number of my watches that I'm not wearing anymore. I just don't value them in the same way. But the ones I've kept, I'm really enjoying them for the quirks, for the love of it. And I can see myself acquiring more pieces, just different pieces. And it's not necessarily about how much they are, the investment value. It's just about, these are cool things. So, status symbols, yes, I guess so. And everybody potentially goes on that journey. And I don't have an ounce of scorn or negativity towards those people, because I think they're all on a journey. And it doesn't matter how much money you've got either, by the way. You know, you see footballers with these things, you see athletes and celebrities with these things. But you also see people with their first Seiko that their mum and dad bought them when they were 18, their first Casio that means a lot more to them. And I think that's really what collecting and being a watch enthusiast, a watch lover, is all about for me. Thank you for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, because it does get a very polarizing perspective. Can't wait to read them, and I'll see you on the next video. Please do hit subscribe, really helps, and thanks again.